Wow, I truly look so extra right now. I held on to my quote unquote virginity for a long time. I definitely was one of those girls who had kind of internalized this message that having penetrative sex for the first time was going to be this magical, life-changing event. And I, of course, was sorely disappointed. I've never orgasmed from penetrative sex. I have never orgasmed from G-spot stimulation. And my first couple times engaging in penetrative sex, I thought maybe something was wrong with me. I know that a lot of people with vaginas go through similar journeys where the movies have hyped it up, and school and TV and your friends, and you have penetrative sex and you're like, that's it. 70% of people with vaginas don't orgasm regularly from penetrative sex alone. Once I learned that, I definitely felt like I wasn't such a weirdo. And it was like I could keep trying and trying and trying to get something orgasmic out of penetrative sex, but like after a certain point, what is the point? I orgasm the way that I orgasm. I don't need to orgasm from penetrative sex to be able to like be this norm that I had set for myself. You're not weird if you're not orgasming from penetrative sex. You're not weird if one certain sex act doesn't make you orgasm. You're not weird if you can't orgasm at all. But that does leave the gaping question, what is the point of penetrative sex for me and for people who don't orgasm? I titled this, I Laugh at Men While Having Sex, because of an inside joke that I have with some friends where I was talking about how sometimes when I'm having penetrative sex and I feel sort of disconnected, maybe I'm not my most comfortable with that partner, sex is really funny. When you think about it and you remove orgasm, you remove even pleasure in some cases, and you're just having sex, like when you look at it from an objective standpoint, like it's weird, it's awkward, it's funny. Sometimes that's what it's like for me because I'm not focused on getting my nut, or I'm not focused on how good it feels because maybe it doesn't feel that good. If penetrative sex isn't orgasmic to you, like it isn't for a lot of people, you kind of have to go on this journey of what does it mean? So for me, sex is of course about giving and receiving pleasure. So the first thing that penetrative sex means to me is it's one way of giving my partner pleasure. They'll get a nut out of it, and even if I don't, there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe they just gave me head and I got a nut out of that, and they didn't, and that's lovely. Give and receive and make other people feel good, and making other people feel good makes you feel good, and it's a beautiful thing. Another thing penetrative sex means for me is when I'm in any type of relationship with somebody that's sexual or romantic, having penetrative sex is an integral part of that for me, regardless of my orgasm, because in considering that it's literally physically the closest that I will get to another person, someone being inside of you, to me, experiencing that regularly makes me feel connected with somebody else, really truly connected. Sex acts that don't end in orgasm, those things usually mean to me those two things: feeling connected with somebody and giving somebody else pleasure. I encourage that everybody explore to find out what sex acts that don't end in your orgasm mean to you. This can be sort of like love languages, finding your sex love language. For example, they can mean commitment. Maybe you're the kind of person who only wants to have certain types of sex when you're in a relationship with somebody versus when you're not. And that's perfectly okay because you've discovered that that type of sex means commitment to you. Maybe rather than commitment, there are certain sex acts that make you feel safe and comfortable, and they signify that you feel safe and comfortable with somebody, and certain sex acts that you do with people who you don't feel as safe or comfortable with. For some people, certain sex acts are the foundation of a relationship. For other people, there is no sex act that is essential to a relationship, and they're sort of able to just adjust around how their partner wants to schedule sex, what kind of sex acts their partner wants to do, and what would help them themselves orgasm. In addition to safety and comfort, there's also trust, especially if you have insecurities about certain areas of your body, or if you have insecurities about your performance or anything of that nature, then certain sex acts could be something you reserve for people that you trust. And the reason that I say explore is because this answer is going to be entirely different for everyone. It depends on A, what you consciously tell yourself that sex means to you and that sex should mean, or certain sex acts. And B, what you've absorbed from the environment around you, what your friends think these sex acts mean, what your parents have told you these sex acts mean. And of course, there's a lot of unlearning in order to be as sexually liberated as possible, but still you've internalized some of these things. Basically, all of that to say, exploring your sexuality doesn't just mean finding your nut. It means exploring what sex acts that don't involve orgasm mean to you as well, right? Because ideally, these non-orgasmic sex acts, you don't want to be a chore. Even though it may be about somebody else's pleasure, it's still preferable to enjoy them as opposed to not enjoying them. So I think figuring out what they mean for you is kind of the key in staying engaged in moments where your orgasm isn't being centered. And kind of further learning to define sex as not based in your personal orgasm. And sometimes this exploration might require that you have sex that maybe you look back on and don't think that that was for you, you know? Don't think that that was the experience that you want. For example, let's say for you, anal sex signifies a certain level of trust. And in order to figure that out, you had to have anal sex with somebody that you didn't trust and feel weird about it after. We should kind of be able to go through these sometimes positive, sometimes negative experiences sexually in our journey to determine what different sex acts ultimately mean to us. And we should be able to do this while still being nice to ourselves. So even though maybe you had anal sex with somebody that you didn't trust and it wasn't an experience that you think what you liked, a lot of the time that can automatically go to, oh, I'm so stupid, I never should have done that, I regret that, I hate this person and I hate myself. I think when we label it as exploration and we give ourselves space to engage in things that maybe don't work out, we can be a lot more forgiving to ourselves. And that creates a lot more space to actually find what you like. And when you don't explore, not only do you not have a full, deep understanding of what different sex acts mean to you, but you also are limiting the sex acts that you're engaging in. There are things that can be very pleasurable or orgasmic, or pleasurable and orgasmic, or whatever, that you're never gonna know because you're not letting yourself explore because you're too busy shitting on yourself. Not to mention that there's pleasure in things that aren't orgasm. There have definitely been times where I've had penetrative sex and enjoyed it more than other times and would describe that as pleasurable. There are definitely times where I'm cuddling with somebody or I get a long hug and I would describe that as pleasurable too. So yeah, talking about both discovering what different sex acts mean to you and also just feeling more engaged and connected, especially in sex acts that maybe aren't orgasmic for you. Talk to a lot of different people about feeling distracted during sex, even if that sex act is actually orgasmic to you, just feeling like your mind is somewhere else. What I would suggest is mindfulness. What mindfulness is essentially, and especially if you're an anxious person, our brains are so focused on the past and worrying about things that we did and what we said and how that went, and the future, things that we want to do, our goals, where we're going next, what we have to get done today. We're so rarely able to just feel in the present. Mindfulness is a key to better sex, however you define it. Orgasmic and non-orgasmic acts alike. Being mindful means that you're actually able to be in the present moment. One way to do this is to connect to your breath. So taking deep breaths, and it's like, I'm breathing, I'm here, and just feeling more connected with your body. Thank you all so much for subscribing to this Patreon. Literally means the world. And thank you for coming to the second installment of my Sweet Nothings videos. I hope you explore, I hope you journal. Kisses. Bye.